an entirely different.
Okay, we're now getting
issue.
images of the visit that the Prime Minister's had to that semiconductor plant in Sendai. Both the Prime Ministers there, they took a bullet train from Tokyo to Sendai, and now they are witnessing some of the AVs, the audio visuals, and other engagements that they've had as well, going through that unit as well to understand how everything's been put together and how it works, and how this sort of a unit could very soon, in a matter of a couple of years perhaps, be operational in India too if things go well.
Yes, this is the Tokyo Electron semiconductor factory in Sendai.
That's what the caps are saying, TEL.
That's right. And we were talking a little earlier about Japan's semiconductor industry, and it's in fact one of the oldest in the world, and it had a dominance for a very long time, or supplied more than 50% of the market share in the 1980s, but it fell after that. So, I mean, like all other electronics that Japan was perhaps the pioneers and perhaps the leaders in, it's now falling behind because of competition.
And perhaps some of the fastest ways of producing chips and smallest and most advanced chips is something that Prime Minister Modi has witnessed today at this facility. And of course, clearly that image must have crossed his mind that something like this can be and will be very soon in India as well. That's what seems to be being conveyed as well, right there in that audio-visual clip that the Prime Minister was viewing.
No, I haven't.
Okay.
But what I can say is Japan's link with Taiwan is very integrated as far as semiconductor goes. There's a lot of to and fro that happens because Taiwan is a cheaper place to do certain activity and it goes back to Japan. So for Japan, creating a resilient supply chain is very critical, considering the issue of international issue with Taiwan that exists. So they definitely want to have much more those activities that happens in Taiwan, if it can happen in elsewhere as an alternate supply chain mode. And I think India is probably looking at plugging into that aspect.
I mean, just look at the way how things are, how they stand where chips are concerned, because we had Donald Trump coming in saying that we will not send a certain chip which was essentially made for the Chinese market itself to China, and then agreeing to then export it because part of the revenue will come to the US federal government. So in a way, you had even him not being able to stand in the way of this sort of an intricate linkage that is there where such advanced technology is concerned. So again, it speaks to how the world is interlinked, and it needs to come together where these advanced technologies are concerned, have perhaps one approach to them as well, because we're not seeing that happen where something as critical as artificial intelligence is concerned at the moment, Basa Sajjana.
Yeah, you're very right. I think this NVIDIA chips, particularly of very small dimensions, I think Mr. Biden possibly was more successful in putting a block to the export of the NVIDIA chips to China, basically because it did not want China to benefit from that technology that had been developed in the United States. And that is why it got the CHIPS Act all put in place. And this is what the threat also was from Mr. Trump. But then when there was a ban that was put on the export of rare earth materials, critical materials, magnets, etc. to the United States, China controls about 80–85% of the world supply of these magnets.
I mean, the only argument that Nelson Wong had to make was that if you don't sell it to them, they'll come up with it themselves and something perhaps even better.
Yeah,
which is happening now.
As far as AI is concerned, we've seen how they've come up with DeepSeek. Many those NVIDIA chips were not available to them, but with the normal chips that were available to them, they have been able to come up with DeepSeek. So I think all the investment that has gone as far as the West is concerned into all this latest technology, the chips, etc. are concerned, then of course that is not able to get the benefit and get the advantage of the investments that you have made in this. So I think there are a large number of issues in this, but it also, it's not only a trade matter, it's a hugely geopolitical matter, geostrategic ramifications and repercussions, because that is why we see as a result of that, you know, that 90 days reprieve that has been given by the United States to China in terms of implementation of the tariffs, the penal tariffs on China is concerned. It is basically because, you know, as people say, China has leverage and China has cards in its hands as far as the rare earths and materials are concerned.
And so it seems that the Americans are not able to guard their intellectual property to the extent that they should, despite their technical advancement in cybersecurity and whatnot.
And now they are, you know, Mr. Trump has agreed to get 600,000 Chinese students to the United States, and we know that is basically...
It's a big, big red flag where intellectual property is concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the Chinese students, researchers. You know, I myself have been in countries of this nature. For instance, as far as Sweden is concerned, I was ambassador there, and I saw that, you know, how the Indian students are also there, but the Chinese students are really sent there by their government, by their party, and basically to get as much of the technology as you possibly can. But and this is it's not as if this is unknown to the local administration, to the local authorities, but then the support that these universities, you know, this Royal Institute of Technology, etc.
Case of penny wise and pound foolish.
Yeah, they are getting all this support, so they are, you know, bringing in all these students, but in the process they are all getting hollowed out as far as their technology is concerned.
So perhaps the solution is in university to university collaboration, sharing of R&D to some extent.
Yeah, definitely that could be a good option, but that is between Japan and India.
Right.
We should be looking at collaborations, and there are lots of things that are happening at private end also, like Suzuki already has Innovation Center hub in Hyderabad IIT, and they're planning to do more so across the country. These are very good way of nurturing research talent, because that is some place we've been more application oriented in our you know, higher education approach in engineering. I think base research has often suffered in that case. So I think now the attempt is to go back to doing some amount of base research, and Japan is plugging into that very well. And the need is very mutual, because if base research happens at a lower cost in our country, and applications of various kind can take over from there in, you know, the university levels in Japan, which has more equipments, etc., to go ahead with the application orientation. And then these students who do this activity out here can be sent to Japan to continue to do their higher studies out there. So that's a very good way of...
we talked about it yesterday as well, and I'd like to pose that question to Ashok Sajana now, because of the kind of turn things have taken globally, because of the attitude of Donald Trump, essentially. It's not just about tariffs, it's about looking inwards, being protective. And India and Japan there, both facing the tariff onslaught, India far more than Japan. Japan cancelling a very important visit to the US, where they had to finalize investments for a huge amount, much more than Japan has promised to invest here in India in 10 years. But that didn't happen at the moment because of certain issues still to be worked out. Do you think India and Japan can work together to some way combat the kind of challenges that have been thrown up because of the man in the White House?
No, absolutely. I think, you know, when I was talking initially about the Economic Security Initiative, I think that is basically, you know, it's not only the weaponization of supply chains by China, but it's also weaponization of the global trade regime through tariffs by President Donald Trump.
Yeah, that term coercion is there.
Yeah, coercion is there, and you know, the threat and all those, the pressures are all there. Meaning, of course, I think it was with Mark and with Ramesh yesterday,
yes,
again, that I spoke that, you know, when the Prime Ministers had spoken, they did not refer to this at all, not even, not directly, not even tangentially.
Yes.
But then when this question was posed to Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri, and he said that all global issues were discussed without sort of going into any great detail. But I think this is what the two leaders have decided, that if we can sort of make our economies come together, make them more complementary, make them more resilient, then we will be able to deal with
Right.
the challenge that we are facing from the United States. Because basically what the United States offers is a market, and if we are able to provide markets to each other and make those markets grow, then for instance, India is exporting about in terms of goods, $480 billion. About $80 billion are to the United States. Now we have signed a very ambitious FTA with the United Kingdom. The United Arab Emirates is our second largest destination of exports. If we send about 18% of our exports to the US, about 9% of our exports go to the UAE. We've signed a very good agreement, an FTA with the UAE. We are discussing with the Mercosur countries. When Prime Minister was in Brazil, he spoke about the PTA, the preferential trade agreement with Mercosur. With GCC, we are doing, GCC is a very important trading partner for India. So I think if we can look around, and what the Ministry of Commerce has also said, 40 countries they are identifying for focused attention,
Yes.
going there. So it is Japan, it is UK, it is EU. EU by the end of the year we should be, meaning that is the commitment that has been given by Prime Minister and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen when she was here in February of this year. So if you are able to get that, and that is also a very important market for us, 27 countries. So we have signed an FTA with EFTA countries, the 4 EFTA countries also. So I think
Could you also weigh in, there's a lot of debate going on in whether India should now reconsider going into the RCEP and because revisit that or because of what's happening with the US. Do you think that is something that should be looked at seriously, or we should stay away because again we have China in the mix there?
No, absolutely. I think I am convinced that RCEP doesn't really make sense for us. Meaning when the Prime Minister in that meeting in Bangkok in 2018, he said, and we had been negotiating in very good faith. From 2012 onwards, we had been negotiating. We were one of the front runners as far as getting a good, ambitious, balanced RCEP agreement was concerned. But when we found that what RCEP would really result in is opening up our market to Chinese products, which in any case are coming even without the FTA. And
Yes.
we are having today also $100 billion trade deficit with that. And then we do have, with the ASEAN, we have an India-ASEAN FTA, which was signed in 2011. It did not
It
yield
needs to
very
be
good
revisited.
results. Yeah, it did not yield us we are, having a
You want to
renegotiation,
renegotiate that, yeah.
renegotiation of that. We have an FTA with Japan, SEPA, that also, in terms of promoting our exports, it has not worked. That is why we are talking about diversification and putting in place subcommittees so that, our exports can go. We have an FTA with South Korea. So that means out of all these 16 countries, 15 leaving out India, we have with 10 ASEAN, with Japan, with South Korea, and now also with Australia, and now getting on also with New Zealand. So, basically barring China, we have with everyone. And none of those countries was willing to respond positively to what are issues of my interest, which is in terms of temporary location of my skilled professionals in those countries. I'm not getting any benefits from there. So frankly, Gautam, thank you for that question, but I think we have not received any messages.
Like at
from
least in the case of India and Japan, there's a trade-off. They might have trade surplus, but they have investments coming in.
Yeah.
We have their ODAs. If that is a model that could be adopted by other countries, fine. But that's not happening.
Yeah, not happening, and that is, if you remember that when Xi Jinping had come to India in
He
September
promised a lot.
2014, even at that time, at that time it was still not as much as China. Initially it was mentioned $100 billion. But
Yes.
that time he said $20 billion. What have we got? We have got nothing at all. So, meaning even if there is a trade deficit, you come, you invest, you bring your technology, you sort of, so that Indian economy in that sense
We had
is
Make
able
in
to
India, and
benefit.
what, nothing happened in Make in India?
Yeah.
Professor
I
Roy
think so.
Chaudhary,
Same way we had Make in India.
Yeah.
what Ambassador Sajjanar was talking about was, I mean, the geopolitics of the supply chain as well as the geopolitics of trade. Now, obviously, the Trump...
We went
the-
beyond India and Japan.
Yeah, but the Trump administration's reaction to is really because of the supply chain dominance of China, and that's why. And then he decided with all the countries that the U.S. has, a trade deficit with. But the point is that with regard to semiconductors, why is this going to be an area where there can be a new focus and there is a new trade war, or is this going to be the emerging area in the future where there is competition again for the supply chain, and India can, with our own SMEs and everything and potential, add to this supply chain and probably
And along with AI, I'd like to add all frontier tech. It's about AI, it's about robotics.
So it was all
it's about-
critical technologies that everyone was
everything.
interested in to start with.
Everything
Even the
needs
US was interested in tying up with India for all
Even
these things.
in the Quad, if you remember,
Yes.
the first meeting of the summit level meeting,
In
the
Japan.
3 issues that were
21.
identified in 21, immediately after Mr. Biden came to
Physical
power.
summit. Yeah,
Number
first
1
physical
was
one.
vaccines, because COVID was running.
Yeah.
Number 2 was critical and emerging technologies. And number 3 was climate change.
Climate change.
And of course, critical and emerging technologies between the 2 NSAs, India and the United States, we got to the ISET.
Yes.
And now under Mr. Trump, of course, he wants to have an imprint of his own.
So,
he has changed.
how does
I
this?
don't know if the
How is
future
this
of the Quad is
relationship
contemplated.
important? No,
I
I
don't
mean
know
the
if the future of the Quad is
semiconductors
contemplated.
again, because
Yeah.
Japan wants to come back. They want to revitalize
If you look
their
at
industry.
it, Japan was probably the country which first felt the shock of having integrated too much into the Chinese economy when the COVID happened.
Right.
Twice over. First when China closed down their economy, subsequently when China opened
There
up
was
and Japan
protests
closed
in the
down.
streets, anti-Japanese protests in the streets.
Yeah. So effectively, I think Japan realized how critical it is to have an alternate supply chain, and I think the discussion of alternate supply chain into the Quad came through Japan talking to each of the Quad members individually. And as much as they're plugging into semiconductor with us, I feel they're doing a similar activity with Australia also. So effectively, in many circumstances that is happening right now, Japan probably would like to have an alternate resilience with these partners. But I think in this whole game, even somewhere the Southeast Asia will also get integrated. That whole idea of centrality of Southeast Asia, the whole idea that it's the production hub today. I think some kind of integrations would happen in this region.
It depends on what India and Japan and like-minded countries can do about the kind of monopoly that China has even on critical minerals.
Critical minerals, exactly. So, it's like semiconductor is one end, but critical minerals is actually the starting point of the semiconductor, because large amount of rare earth is because of the semiconductor usage of the technology, the components that when you get to make. So critical, that's why I think the critical minerals is also part of our joint statement this time, and rare earth is figuring topmost. And we are definitely, Japan doesn't have much resources in there. We are also not in the higher end of rare earth resource country. But I think the integration of these two would take some change, make some kind of a change to the output of what would happen in the semiconductor.
How influential is Japan in ASEAN?
Japan is well integrated into ASEAN, and ASEAN plus 3, in which Japan has a lot of stake. Japan individually does a lot of bilateral engagements with ASEAN countries. There are, they are also they have at various point of time, their prime ministers have addressed specifically to the ASEAN community in various forums. So ASEAN is been their backyard at one point of time. Today, its centrality is well established within Japan's foreign policy.
Okay, now we have played out pictures, Mark, already of Prime Minister Modi, and that semiconductor manufacturing plant in Sendai, and now the PM has tweeted about it as well, his visit there. PM Ishiba and I was to the Tokyo Electron factory. We went to the training room, production innovation lab, and interacted with top officials of the company. The semiconductor sector is a key area for India-Japan cooperation. In the last few years, India has made many strides in the sector. A lot of youngsters are getting associated with it as well. We seek to continue this momentum in the times to come. So what does that really tell us as to where this partnership is headed, Professor Roy Chaudhary?
I think there is nothing much that we can further talk about it. You will probably need some experts from IT sector to tell you about exactly the technological differences that exist between what we aspire to be and what Japan can give us. But what I think does tell us at a policy level is that multifaceted way of, one, getting the talent ready, two, getting the manufacturing bases in place, integrating the component parts of the thing. So it is like, value chain kind of creation such that both the countries can create a resilient supply chain for semiconductor. I think that is the game plan, essentially, value chain being much more resilient towards the need of these two countries, probably need of the world in many ways.
Ambassador Sajjanhar, do you see a lot more, Japanese help, or let's say Japanese assistance in Indian tech startups? Because, I mean, we are now developing, or we have a future road ahead. We'll have a common vision. We are democratic countries, and perhaps we are beginning to speak the language as well. Because at the end of the day, I mean, in the larger scheme of things of geoeconomics, if we are going to start partnering with countries, let's go the whole hog.
No, absolutely. I think there is that convergence as far as the two countries are concerned in terms of collaborating with each other, bringing our two economies together, because it is not only for the two countries that we are coming, but I think there are so many challenges, so many uncertainties, there is so much of turbulence that is happening around the world, and it is not only in the strategic field, it is not only in the defense, it is not only in the political, it's not only in the economic, it's in all of these put together. So I think if we can get some reliable partners, and as far as Japan is concerned, for India, I would say it is possibly one of the, if not the most trusted and the most valuable partners. If you look around in the world, meaning who is a partner of that nature, that you have this cultural affinity, civilizational linkage going back to millennia, not to and there has really not been, barring the 1998 nuclear test, and after which, because of Japan's own experience in 1945, that's the way it reacted. But then by 2014 we have come on an even keel, even on that score. And even as far as that is concerned, it did not in any way, we did have the maximum sanctions coming from the United States, but then Japan took the cue from the US when we had the next steps to strategic partnership and signing of the India-US civilian nuclear deal in 2000, framework agreement, and then agreement in 2009, 2008, all that sort of thing. So I think Japan,
we just need to take care of our Nuclear Liability Act.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. We need to take care of that. That is in terms of getting more nuclear power plants, basically from the United States and from Areva in France and all. That is what we need to do. But I think as far as the relations with Japan are concerned, there was a little bit of up and down, but that has been stabilized, that has been smoothened. So I think this is one of the most significant partners. And you know what Professor Shabni Roy mentioned about supply chains. Supply chains, the three countries, which are members of the Quad, their bilateral relations have progressed in the area of strategic cooperation, security defense cooperation. Japan is a permanent member of the Malabar exercises. So, both in that area. So there is complete convergence, not only in terms of values, but also in terms of interests, having free and open Indo-Pacific, freedom of navigation, freedom of overflights in South China Sea, as far as having a rule-based international order in that. In terms of collaborating with India, whether economically and building infrastructure in our neighborhood in South Asia. Earlier it was with Bangladesh also. Maybe it will sort of come back on track with Sri Lanka, with Asia.
My question was
Africa.
more about the startups, the SMEs, the next generation, because Professor Roy Chaudhary did mention earlier that the parents of children are looking west. Our country has been looking east and acting east for some time, but now are the tech startups perhaps going to start acting east as well?
Yeah, I definitely think startups has a huge, kind of a role to play in the kind of conversations that we are having with respect to economic development as well as integration of economy. And startups, the biggest advantage would be that it would be able to take in the local talent. Sometimes, a bigger manufacturing based things have problem of using the local talent. They usually are looking outwards talents but not local talents. This is one thing that we've been always going to and fro as far as SME sectors go, and probably startups is a good alternative. But the
SoftBank has made a lot of significant investments.
Yeah, SoftBank is Japan's major contribution to ARC, and you have that unicorn project also which is on. But frankly speaking, when Japan said that we will delink from China and look at other places for a supply chain thing, we have not been able to cash in as much as, say, Vietnam has cashed in the process. We have to ask ourselves, of course, as Ambassador did say that, we've scaled up, we are now 42 in the ease of doing business, etc. But I think a lot, now that the prefectural level has happened, we will have very good, thing at ground level, what kind of differences, why is the business often having fears? Those could be addressed better now that we have prefectural integration with respect to economic security initiatives that we've gone forward with in this joint statement.
Yes, that will be something to look forward to. We'll be talking about this further, how India and Japan are advancing their ties in multiple spheres. Just taking a quick break at this point. I'm told that I have to thank you at this point. Perhaps you're required elsewhere. And Professor Roy Chaudhary, if you could continue with us. We'll have a new guest as well joining us on the panel in just a bit. Stay with this special broadcast about Prime Minister Modi's Japan visit.
You were told that you had to go at 12.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me.